Hello and welcome to the Unsung Sport Podcast, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of the sports you love. Today we're heading over to Spain and taking a closer look at La Liga as I'm joined by Felix Torralba. Have I said that right, Felix? Thank you. Chief Revenue Officer at RCD Mallorca. Felix, thank you very much for joining us.
Pleased to be here, Mark.
Great stuff. Look, we all know the importance of revenues in football. Could you give us an overview of your role, please?
Yeah. So as you said, I'm the Chief Revenue Officer. So my role is coordinating and managing the different revenue streams of the club, of RCD Mallorca. So basically, by coordinating all those efforts from commercial, ticketing, hospitality, venue, and so on, we try to maximize and push the performance of revenue generation that we can create, and obviously also generating new business opportunities and new business areas for the club that help us maximize our potential.
Great stuff. Now, in the UK, we have seen an influx of wealthy Americans investing in football, and I know that in 2016, I think you guys were in the third tier of Spanish football at that time, but you were bought by an American consortium with strong links to the NBA. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, it was still in second division actually,
Right.
So it was mid-season, still in second division, but suffering. The club was in a difficult situation, also financially, quite unstable. So we had the luck, being honest, and looking back at it right now, probably the best ever happened to the club that we got these group of this ownership from the US believing and investing in the club. And I think the great factor here is it's not about someone, it's about a group of people that really come from sports. They have proven track record in sports management and in sports performance. Now we're talking about great athletes like Andy Kohlberg, tennis player, Steve Nash or Steve Kerr at that time, Robert. So people that have been working around sports, that understand sports, that go for a mid and long-term vision, and that obviously had an incredible success story with the Phoenix Suns, where nowadays probably in the NBA could be considered easily one of the top 4 franchises in the league. So I think that was a great change that occurred for the organization.
Yeah. And look, Mallorca is a beautiful part of the world, but what was the ties? I mean, why Phoenix to Mallorca?
I speak, obviously can't speak in their name, but what they had a great experience and success case in Phoenix, and they wanted to continue investing in sports, and they wanted it to be a global sport. They wanted it to be easy accessible. They wanted it to be both male and female. So football, I think once they decided football was the sport, they said, well, probably if we invest in football, we should go there where the football goes biggest and global, which is Europe. And then I think they had several conversations and they were looking for different opportunities, not only in Spanish league, but also in Germany, in England, and in different opportunities. And I think there was several factors that Mallorca, or things that really leveraged it for them, that made the decision happen. No, you have no competitors on the island. La Liga fair play rules, financial fair play rules, probably gave them a sense of safe investment, and knowing the field. So I think La Liga played a role. Mallorca was probably the spot they were looking for, and that's how it started.
Yeah, it's a beautiful part of the world. So yeah, I don't blame them, to be honest. And how does the kind of partnership between the club and the Phoenix Suns work?
Well, I mean, we are different organizations. We have some co-ownership in between our organizations, but for us, it's a great opportunity, and we speak a lot with each other. I have very good and continuous relationship with the Chief Revenue Officer in Phoenix, and we exchange. We hear from each other. We share things about the industry. We try to put value into that opportunity that we have by having two of the largest markets in sports industry. So it's an advantage that we have, that we can work together and also learn from each other, support each other, and create opportunities together.
Great stuff. And am I right in saying that Mallorca have been back in La Liga for 3 seasons? Your third season?
Yes, this is our so Mallorca since the new ownership arrived, as you mentioned, it was a very tough moment. So they went down to the division, then straight back to second, then to first, then back to second. And now we had 3 years in a row in the first division, ending in a top 10 position last year. So, growing and securing the first division is obviously the main goal always.
Yeah, great stuff. I know. Yeah, you were ninth last year, so that's hugely impressive. And I guess like how hard is it not only to stay in that division but to thrive?
Absolutely, because I mean the good thing is, I'm more on the business side of sports, no, and obviously our asset is the sporting, as the players, is the first team, is the youth team that needs to come back. But what I do in the day to day has little to do with the sports. But obviously, the importance is to have a plan, to have a midterm vision, a long term vision. Not only to think about what happens tomorrow, what happens in the end of the season. You need to have strategy in place, plans in place that really help you strive, as you mentioned, or grow. We have all the right elements on this island to do so, in my opinion. We have an incredible brand. We have a historic club. We have a beloved club, because we have so many people coming over, generating emotions and touch points with this island that are football fans. They have a sense of love for the team, and this we need to put in place. We need to give that extra value that we are becoming from that, and continue growing. I think we are on the right path. We are growing, probably one of the fastest growing organizations in European sports, and we want to continue on that.
Great stuff. All very positive. And we know that Mallorca is a very hot destination for tourists. So how do you define that kind of ideal customer?
Well, I would change that question to, is every customer finding what they're looking for in our organization? So the ideal customer is everywhere. You have people that have an immense love for football. You have people that are just about Mallorca, RCD Mallorca. You have people that are not that much into football, but that are on the island and they want to hear about gastronomy, experiences, lifestyle. So are we able to offer that? It's everyone, and that is a big part of what we have been doing these 2 years, is to make sure everyone, no matter how much he wants to spend, no matter what he's exactly looking for, is he finding that in our venue, in our matches, in our communication channels, in our organization. And I think that work is helping us to create a lot of ideal customers, because they're same important. You have this social mass. I'd like to call it, I don't know if that term is correct in English. It's the people that are around you, that consume you regularly. This has to grow in order for the team or the organization to be able to grow. And that only happens if different people come together and find that same passion for a team or for organization. So we need to make sure we offer that.
Yeah. And I know with, again, I hold my hands up. I'm not a huge NBA fan. I do like NFL. So I'm a big sort of American sports. And in terms of the experience of American sports, it's not just about the players and that 90 minutes. It's about what happens beforehand and after. And I understand that that's something that you guys really, really value. What are you doing in there?
Yes, but without losing the focus on the sports. Obviously, the American sports industry, and when I speak with Phoenix, or when we speak with other colleagues, I spent some time in Ohio and during my studies, and you can't compare. You cannot just copy paste something. It's completely different worlds, and the industry is really different. Now, can we take a lot of learnings from that? Yes. Can we make our experiences better despite what happens on the pitches? 100% the focus, which not always is like that in different sports at different moments of the games and so on. No, in football it is, and we have to be sure we reflect that. We have to be sure we embrace that passion that football generates. That the traditional part of football, but give it more assets, give it more opportunities, give it more experiential factors behind it. And I think that's what we're trying to do: take the best from both worlds, and in a humble way, try to put that together and find the right mix.
Awesome. I mean, it helps when you've got very nice surroundings. And talking of surroundings, I know that your stadium is being done up at the moment. Is that near completion? Where are you with that?
Almost there. We're about 90% into a 360-degree refurbishment of the stadium. So we started that in May 2022, so over a year ago. We have been playing while refurbishing the stadium. Obviously, the insularity, you can't really just move to another big stadium somewhere close by, obviously. But it has been an incredible path so far, and we are finalizing everything end of this year. So by end of December, we would have completed the entire stadium, getting rid of the running track and generating really innovative and behind the scenes opportunities, plus obviously commercial and retail opportunities for the club besides match day, right? And that's one of the. So I think there has been done an important job being done in first creating the concept, the conceptualization of what we want to create, and now that we are finalizing it, it has been tough 1.5 years so far, but it's definitely been worth it.
Yeah, great stuff. And was it a case, you mentioned the running track there? Obviously, I'm a West Ham fan, so we have the running track problems as well. But again, it's trying to make that atmosphere a bit tighter to really make it into a football stadium, which is tough when you have that separation from the crowd.
That was the number one goal for our fans. It was a year-long demand by our fan base, and just in the first season, we would just finish one of the main sides of the stadium, what we call the East Tribune. I'd say, and this is just my opinion, but I'd say there were 3 or 4 additional points at the end of the season just by bringing in that one stand, and this is when the crowd cheer, and you hear the players say, they feel the atmosphere. So running track was definitely the number one goal, and by deciding, we're going for it, how we maximize the opportunities of every single square meter within the stadium. Stadiums are a big part of cities, of population. So how can we put this in value? How can we create not only value for us as an organization, but also for the destination of Mallorca, for the city of Palma? And I think we have really achieved something nice here. So let's see how it continues. But I think the feedback so far and the opportunities and the growth that we have experienced so far is already saying we're on the right path.
Amazing. I hope to get over there. I'd love to come and see the stadium. I'm sure it'd be amazing.
You're more than welcome.
Thank you. And what's the capacity there now, or will it be?
Funny enough, obviously, when you say now, it has been changing in the last 2 years, but always around 20,000 because we had some closed areas. At the end, we're going to say around 26, a little bit above 26,000. We didn't want to grow too much either, but we have increased the capacity by about 3,500 seats of what we had before, just also by the econometrics of having the southern stand, the lower stand.
And aside from gate receipts, obviously they're very important, but what are the other kind of big revenue generators for the club?
So obviously hospitality and ticketing, as you mentioned, partnerships is an important part of it. TV revenues, obviously. And then there are some areas that have the biggest opportunity to grow. And as we were mentioning before, non-match day is such an important part of what we're working for. The stadium is open 19 days. We have 19 Liga matches, let's say 1-2 additional matches that can happen, cup, whatever. But what happens the other 300 plus days of the year? And this is where you have incredible opportunities if you create the right infrastructure in the right moment, in the right scenario, in the right destination. Also, this is a very important revenue stream also for the club. Merchandising, obviously, as well. We have changed the way we manage our official lines and products. So really redefining every single aspect of those revenue generations and growing. So far, one step after the other, but in the right direction always.
And Mallorca being an island, how does I don't quite know how the youth system works in the Liga, if I'm honest, but within the UK, you can only have people within a certain catchment area. So within London, for example, we had the pre-academy lead at Arsenal on recently, and obviously then he has to compete with Tottenham and West Ham and things like that. But being an island, how does that work? Because obviously you're very limited to geographical.
Yes and no. I think yes. but you have we don't compete within our territory, and we are one of the most visited destinations yearly. So we have more than 17 million tourists per year coming to the island. We have some part-time residents. We have the island. I think is one of the best connected airports, probably in Spain for sure. It's top three. So, I think the proximity and the insularity nowadays has evolved so much, and I think Mallorca is probably a fantastically connected hub, and that allows us to have a lot of people coming to Mallorca, and then we have more than about a million population within the island, so it's a big enough city as well. As Palma is top 10 biggest cities in Spain, so the numbers are there. We can still grow, and there's still great opportunity despite the insularity.
And coming back to the financials, you touched upon the youth team as well, and bringing youth players through is expensive. There's a lot of investment we know that goes into bringing young players, but it's the saleability at the end. Is that something that's factored into that revenue generation? I know every club wants to keep their starlets, but is that something that how do you plan for that within a club?
I mean, I'm not very involved in the sporting, obviously, so I can just give some general comments or views, but I couldn't tell you, for example, the cost of retention or cost of acquisition and things like that, because that's really on the sporting side. I just involved in the business side. Now, what we have is a really good group of youth talents right now, and if you see what youth talents has come out of Mallorca, give names, and Asensio would be probably one of the biggest names, but many others and young players from international countries that have gone through our academy. So I think the academy is in a very good health. What we have done is invested some good or made some investment efforts in our training facilities, professionalization of it. So I think that is a very important part, because at the end, what matters is the football, and the academy is a very important part of that.
TV rights are obviously huge over here in the UK. Premier League gets obscene amounts of money, to be honest. So I think, but they're split 50% across all clubs equally in the UK. Then 25% goes to the games shown. So if you're shown more, obviously you get a bit more, and then 25% on league standings. Does it work similarly in La Liga?
Yeah, not exactly like that, but there is also a bunch of different aspects that make a formula, right? There is some money or some percentage on your position in La Liga. There is some percentage based on how much you have produced for La Liga. Now, how many years have you been in La Liga generating value for La Liga? There is some lower percentages on occupation, on audiences. So all those factors get together and define. Obviously, there is. It seems I don't know the Premier League revenue split, but there seems like to be a big difference, or more differences between what we do than what Premier League does for the teams each other. Now again, La Liga, and same as the Premier League, La Liga is the clubs. So we have what we have decided to have. We can fine tune it. We can work on it. We can, try to understand how is TV world and TV rights, which is something that 10 years ago was a complete different world. But again, it's I think the good thing is we are La Liga. The teams together create that. So if there is, opportunities for fine tuning, if there is some things that I'm pretty easy always on that, because it's not something that someone has put a finger on it and said, this is the way we do it. No, it's the clubs that decide how we do it. So if there is some opportunities to make it even better, let's work on it.
And we all hear about the Champions League clubs quite rightly spend the most, because they obviously generate the most money. How big is the gap between a club like Mallorca and the juggernauts like Real Madrid and Barcelona? And is that gap getting bigger?
Well, it depends on our position. Last year was the closest we've ever been. We've been ninth in La Liga, so the closest we've ever been in the last year. So again, there is a big gap between the financial fair play between the TV revenue split. Obviously, there is a big gap, but again, they have been creating and putting in value La Liga brand, while we were trying to get back to the first division and things like that. So again, I think the system is what it is, and if we can make it better, we should make it better. But it's supporting the competition, and it's making sure that La Liga and all our teams are shown internationally, are growing internationally. And I think we are at least in the right direction. And obviously there is always opportunities to fine tune to make sure how should that split exactly be done? Is there opportunity to make it more effective? Is it, when we speak about this with the NBA, for example, what we were mentioning before, it's so different, isn't it? So obviously there is no relegation there. So that's another thing, but there is always opportunity.
How big a financial impact would relegation have on a team dropping out of La Liga just generally? I again, ignorance from my part, I don't know the kind of revenues from La Liga compared to the next division down.
No, there is a big difference. So if you go down from, I mean, La Liga is based on the two competitions, first and second division, you're still part of La Liga. Obviously, if you speak about revenues in the first division and in the second division, I'd say a club could be about a fourth of it, right? So there is a big impact. If you go out of the second division, the impact goes even bigger. Again, the first division is probably the biggest asset of an organization and of an organization then that wants to keep growing as we are trying to.
Yeah, and obviously within the UK we have the parachute payment. So if you drop out of the Premier League into the Championship, you do have that financial buffer, and which I think happened because you just had to get rid of all your players because you just couldn't afford them anymore. Is there a similar mechanism in La Liga?
Yes, absolutely. We have I think it's, from what you have just mentioned, it must be very, very similar. And again, it makes sense, no, because there is a massive difference from one day to another, because you might even, find out the same last match of the competition. I give you an example. When I just joined the team, the first season, we played the last game in Pamplona. And if we won, we were first division. If we tied, it didn't depend on us. If we lose, we would have gone down and relegated. So you need to have, obviously, we are professionals. We need to have contention plans. You need to have, you must be being able to be responsive and responsible with the organization. But yes, there is obviously some parachute payments just to make sure that the impact on the organization on the day to day is limited, at least in a bit, so that the organization can continue activities. Now you have contracts, you have relationships, you have partnerships, you have people that could be impacted by that. And I think that makes it total sense from both Premier League and La Liga to do so.
And how do you compete with teams in the Premier League? I guess when it comes to like international rights, it's strange. Being based in the UK, we are so focused on the Premier League or the Champions League, but actually it's quite hard to I'd watch anything. Like when the World Cup's on, my wife's always like, why are you watching Nigeria versus some random team? I love football. If you love football, you love football. But from a commercial point of view, how does that work with competing against the Premier League?
I think everyone is, it's like everything when you're in the commercial world and in the business side of sports, is what are you providing? What is your, USPs? Yeah. What is valuable? And then obviously the terms, you have different, especially on TV market, there's mid and long terms of contracts, right? So we're not talking about every year closing a TV deal. So I think there is no real competition. It's more about how can you maximize your potential with the new TV deal, with your new partnership deal, with your new. So it's really more about making sure that your product is good, that is followed, that it's international, that it's global, and trying to obviously get the most TV time, the most revenues, but not only on TV, I would say in everything, in partnerships, commercial, international offices. I think football is global. Obviously, if you ask anyone in Spain, would have a similar point as you just did. Is we are the same there. You follow mainly your Liga, your national competition. But I mean, in Spain, you can watch every Serie A game. You could watch any Bundesliga game. You could watch any Premier League game through different TV opportunities. So, as you said, we are mad about football. We're mad about sports. So, important to keep an eye.
So how does financial fair play? I know that's a big topic globally at the moment, but how does that work in La Liga? Because we're in the Premier League, we're allowed to make losses. Is that the same in where you are?
No, there is probably some differences between every financial fair play from every competition right now. I'd say La Liga is probably one of the strictest and strongest at this moment. But as I mentioned before, for example, that's sometimes a security towards investment. You know what you're going in. There is a clear system. So basically, in Spain, in La Liga, you spend what you generate. That's pretty much the formula. Again, I'm not the financial guy, so we have a CFO that deals with that. But I would say that the general rule is you're allowed to spend what you're able to generate in a season.
That sounds like a sensible approach, to be honest. that should just be a global rule.
I mean, that's a decision again the clubs took, because obviously we have all seen, years ago we had some incredibly strong organizations that have been, sadly experiencing, well, almost disappearing, or still in third or fourth divisions, even had to restart completely from, and we're talking about massive teams, because losses are bearable for a time, but at some point nobody wants to lose. And what happens then? What happens the day after? No? And again, I think that's a smart move. I'm from what I know, without being a super expert, and I definitely do not know the financial fair play rules of other competitions, but it makes sense. No, you spend what you're able to generate.
Yeah.
If you are able to generate more, you can grow more. If you are, it's a tough moment for everybody. Try to make sure you lower, and then there is obviously a lot of points and timings and adaptations. But the basic rule is don't spend what you can't generate.
Yeah, that's sensible. And I know from yourself, Felix, you were in tennis and golf. Is that right? Before football?
Yeah, especially tennis. I've worked for tennis on the court and off the court. So first with the tours, and I was tennis chair umpire for some years, traveling around the world. So and then came to the backside, to the dark side of sports, as I call it now, behind the scenes to the promotion of sport events. That's how I got to Mallorca. So tennis has taken quite a long time of my life, and I've enjoyed so much again. So beautiful sport as well.
Did you umpire a Wimbledon final once?
I did.
Wow.
I did.
That's
Doubles, but I did. It was insane. It was beautiful. I have this beautiful medal because Wimbledon is also such a great organization, and so fine into details and how they treat everyone involved. And I think that's maybe answering a little bit to your question. Football is football. Football is the big deal. Tennis is incredible sport, also global, and very different. But there is a lot of things and a lot of takeaways we can make from other sports, even if they're doing better or worse than what you think football is. There is a lot of learnings when we talk about hospitality, when we talk about fan experience. Think about how people spend 6-8 hours in a tennis tournament on average, while on the football, it's usually a 2-hour experience. So what do these people get? How do they, what are the experiences generated around a tennis event or a large individual sports event, like gymnastics, swimming? So let's make sure we we make the best out of, different sports. What can it support us with? And for us, for example, in football, I think hospitality wise, golf, tennis, they work incredibly well. They really treat everyone in a way that they feel special. And I think that's something that we in football can do as well. We are trying to work very hard on that, have increased our hospitality experiences, going to 7 different types of experience with different target audiences. There is something for everyone. We make sure we accompany that experience from the very first moment you get in touch with. Those are takeaways from other sports and industries. And I think that is opportunities that we all have to keep growing and improving our day-to-days in football organizations.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I know it's always baffled me, again, having been to NFL games, like there's a lot that happens outside the stadium in terms of fan engagement and hospitality. The same with tennis, actually, because you have Henman Hill, as we call it, and lots of other sports. We don't really do that in football. Everything is inside the stadium, and when the stadiums full, is there kind of opportunities, I guess, to maximize revenue outside of that? Do you think we'd ever go to is it tailgating? I think they call it in the US, that kind of tailgating experience.
I know Hammond Hill and I know tailgating, so I've experienced both.
Right.
Absolutely, yes, there is opportunities to consume sports differently. I think at the end, what happens in football, and that's the beauty of it, it's all about being in the stadium. That's the unique experience. That's momentum. That's football has something, in my opinion, against or versus other sports, which makes it even more precious, or why it's leading, probably the leading sports globally, is that it has this sense of belonging. No, you express yourself as a West Ham fan. The other ones are, but we feel we belong to something, and that is incredible power. So the stadium experience is what we have to work on. We want the people to come to the stadiums to really have an experience, not just to watch a football match, and then of course, at the same time, it's not one or the other. Let's work on everything around it. We make fan zones here. We have stages. We have fun. People come earlier. It helps also, the access points to make them to don't have everyone coming in at the same time. To have more experiences around the stadium. To have more touch points with your fans. More opportunities to activate with your partners. So everything we do can go side by side. It's not the one or the other. Tailgating itself, I don't think there is football or sports venues in Europe with those large parking areas that
That's
they
true.
make in the
That
US.
is true.
But let's create our own experiences, right? And let's learn from that. Let's move it into football and try to adapt it in the best way.
And what does the next 3 to 5 years look like for Mallorca?
I think if we continue, I mean, we have been working on a strategy. We work on 3 and 5 years, and the idea for us and the goal, obviously, securing first division is always, the biggest asset. But for us, is to being a top 10 team. So we want to be 10th in anything that has to be with ratings. We want to be there. We want to be established mid-league team within the next 2-3 years. That's what we have been working for in the last 3 years already. So that would be our 3-5 year plan. And then, one step at a time, keep growing, make sure you strengthen all the foundings of that mid or 10th position, right? Because if you only work it in one way and you forget to work on the sportive, on the infrastructural, on the human resources, at some point it's the chair is gonna fall. So we need to make sure we strengthen all the areas that allows us to be there and continue, the path that we started. Or I started, because I joined them. They did an amazing job before that as well. So I think we are on that path. We are on that goal. We need to keep going and making it even more stable, more secure, and then it will be time to move on and find new next steps.
Sounds very similar to the path of West Ham. I speak to that because we were a yo-yo club. We were up and down quite a lot. Moved into the new stadium, got that stable now, and trying to push on to Europe. I know we won Europe last year, but it wasn't quite. I'm not a fan of that cup. I'm not a fan of that cup. So, but the Europa one is a proper cup. That if we win that, that'd be amazing. I'm a West Ham fan. Felix, you're Real Madrid fan. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm born in Seville, so I would be more closer to Seville. But if you ask me, I'm a massive Mallorca fan, of course.
Of course. Okay, yeah. Okay, I won't ask you who your favourite player is. Then that's. I'll ask you personally. What's your favourite sporting moment?
Mine that I have experienced. I was very lucky to be allowed to work in the Olympic Games. So that opening ceremony, be part of it. Be invited, be part of an Olympic Games. That was incredible. I was in Brazil, in Rio, and that was for me probably one of the most memorable moments ever. Wimbledon final was definitely also a highlight.
Got to be up there.
And if you ask about sports, I'm, as you just said before, I'm a sports fan, so I have a lot of emotional moments I can think about, and that's the beauty about sports. You leave those emotions in there. So but in first person, definitely Olympics was probably one of the highlights.
Yeah, definitely. I think. I think you're right. Sports, it's a unifier, isn't it? There's moments you could look back where I've taken my son or I've been with my dad or friends, and it is about that experience. So I'm glad that Mallorca is really focusing on that, and I can see the great work you're doing, Felix. Thank you very much for your time today. I wish you and Mallorca all the best, and I will definitely be over to that stadium at some point.
We appreciate. We wait for you. Make sure you come. The new stadium is incredible. So, thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you. Cheers now.